Well, good afternoon, folks. It's the real Captain Kirk here. It's the 20th of February, President's Day weekend. A lot to talk about here today. Drought, polar vortex, cold March, tornadoes, and a severe wind gust here. We'll show that on our time-lapse videos here. We always start here with the last week's summary around the world here. This is week ending 19 February, Saturday. This big map is temperature trends versus a year ago on our retail calendar. Here in the U.S., it was 12.2 degrees warmer than last year. So this time last year, the polar vortex was still lingering around. This year, that would make it 16th coldest in 37 years. So below average, but nowhere near as cold as last year's epic conditions. 35% drier than a year ago, 13th driest in 37 years, so below average rainfall. And 68% less snow versus a year ago, 17th least in 37 years, so below average snow. Up in Canada, a tad warmer, but still well below average, wettest in 6 years. UK, coldest in 4 years. Europe, again, 6.2 degrees warmer than last year, so well above average there. Wettest in 20 years across Europe. Russia, 14.1 degrees warmer than a year ago, driest in 3. China is the cold spot, so the other recipient of the polar vortex right now would be China, minus 10 degrees colder than last year, coldest in 10 years. Down under in Australia, coldest in 8. India, coldest in 8 years, and down in Brazil, driest in 9 years. Maps inset left are the trends versus average. We look at the other thing that's happening right now is just drought. Again, this is kind of off the scale here. Where 73% of the country are in the D0 to D4 phases, so either abnormally dry all the way to exceptional drought. So again, that's the most in 22 years. So again, it's a continuation of this La Nina pattern that happened last year and continuing this year. We'll see if it can linger through the mid part of summer here in 2022. Looking at this week here, week ending 26 February, so almost in the history books for February. About 5.7 degrees colder than a year ago, coldest in 3 years, and 11th coldest in 37 years, so below average national temperatures. We're getting another glancing shot here, the polar vortex here this week. In the east, a little misleading. We get topsy-turvy. We have cold weekends, warm middles, and cold weekends, so that's the same general trend here this week. So enjoy the 60s here midweek. It'll be back pretty frigid here as we get toward the weekend in the east. Preset map here left shows 94% wetter than last year. So a stormy week for sure. Most in 4 years, 11th wettest in 37 years, above average. Most snow in 11 years. So we'll see about all that snow here from maybe the Central Plains, Great Lakes, Midwest, and interior Northeast. Yes, East Coast folks from Philly to Boston have another storm system here for Friday. So we'll see just how much that, how close that gets to the big cities in the east. Maps inset left for temps versus last year and preset versus average. Tornadoes are also on the uptick here. Again, we'll have to watch this week. We may be adding to this number here, but 61 so far. That's 165% more than last year. Still 24% below average, but we think this is going to get pretty exciting here, unfortunately, March-April timeframe. So again, with colder intrusions this spring, colder March-April, than last year's pretty warm, dry conditions. So something to watch here because we do think tornadoes are about to go above average here when all is said and done here in March and April. The 6-day snowfall trends here, again, shows that 234% more snow than last year, 80% above average, most in 11 years. So a snowy week, we'll see it just how snowy, but again, it looks the most we've seen in 11 years and fifth most in 37 years. Next week, some folks may be starting to think about spring break, kids traveling south. At least right now, Florida looks pretty good. Here in the U.S., about 4.7 degrees colder than last year, coldest in 3 years, 11th coldest in 37 years. We're getting a little bit of a cross polar vortex flow here, so again, still some lingering cold air going into March. 62% drier than last year, least in 15 years. So kind of a dry week after this stormy week here. We'll see if it's really this dry, fourth driest in 37 years. And a little snowier than last year, even if that snowfall is a little below average. Again, you can see this time last year was just very, very warm start to March. Not so this year. Polar vortex, again, has been relatively strong and symmetrical. That means the cold air stays bottled up, but it's getting a little more ragged here. And when it gets ragged, its favorite spot this year has really been Japan and part of the U.S. So we'll see some of that invasion again here over the next couple of weeks going into March. So spring may be a little bit late this year for sure. Probably several weeks, 3, 4, 5 weeks later than it was last year when we had a very warm start to March. We aggregate these trends here now. Again, this is a 2-week summer here from 20 Feb through Feb-March. Colder trends are kind of waning in China a bit, where they've been very cold as of late, and heading more toward the U.S. In fact, it hasn't had much cold in the west, and it's heading to the west and the central U.S., and then again, eventually the east. So East Coast will still be up and down with a lot of warm weather ahead of these cold fronts, and then getting very cold behind these cold fronts. Preset versus average is the map inset left. Our team will be heading down to Florida here, kind of escaping some of our cold weather, February 28th through March 2nd, speaking at the annual CMA conference. Again, we're a gold sponsor down there. So again, helping retailers plan how much inventory to buy a year ahead, allocation, advertising, timing, marketing, you name it. That's kind of what we do here. So we'll be down there in Florida. We'll talk here real briefly here. We'll end with our weather cameras. Our rooftop weather cameras caught some exciting snow squall here yesterday. Went from 63 earlier in the weekend to plummeting temps to a snow blizzard here for all of about an hour, but it was pretty epic yesterday. So check out our weathertrends360.com/weather-cams. And again, we'll end here with the epic snow squall that came here through yesterday afternoon, Saturday afternoon, and pretty sunset. So with that, folks, have a great week, and we will be back here again this time next week.